The world is changing, but what if I told you it's not happening naturally? What if behind every breakthrough, every innovation, every next big thing, there's a single force quietly pulling the strings? Because while the world is busy scrolling, consuming, and reacting, the United States is doing something far more dangerous. It's designing the future. Not in public, not loudly, but in silence. Behind closed doors, inside labs you'll never see, funded by budgets you'll never hear about. A new kind of power is being built. Not military, not political, but technological. And once you control technology, you don't just influence the world, you control it. Think about it. The apps you use, the platforms you depend on, the chips inside your devices, the AI systems shaping your decisions. Most of it traces back to one place. America didn't just lead the tech revolution. It architected it. But this didn't happen overnight. This was planned decades ago. Back when the internet was just an experiment and computers filled entire rooms, the US government saw something others didn't. They saw the future, and they invested in it aggressively. Organizations like DARPA weren't just building tools. They were building the foundation of a new world. A world where information flows instantly, where machines think, and where power is invisible. Because the most powerful systems are the ones you don't even notice. Fast forward to today, and look around you. Artificial intelligence is everywhere. But who's leading it? Who's funding it? Who's controlling the infrastructure behind it? It's not random. It's not decentralized. It's strategic. From Silicon Valley giants to defense-backed research labs, there's a coordinated push toward one goal: technological dominance. Because in the 21st century, the country that leads in AI leads the world. And the US knows this. That's why billions are being poured into AI development, semiconductors, quantum computing, cyber warfare, not just to innovate, but to stay ahead, always ahead. Because once another nation catches up, control starts to slip. And that's something the US cannot afford. But here's where it gets even more interesting. This control isn't just about hardware or software. It's about ecosystems. Entire digital environments, owned, operated, and influenced by American companies. Think about the operating systems you use, the cloud services storing global data, the social platforms shaping opinions. This isn't just technology. It's infrastructure for the modern world. And whoever owns the infrastructure owns the rules. But what makes this even more powerful is that it doesn't feel like control. There are no obvious chains. No visible restrictions. Everything feels convenient, seamless, free. And that's the illusion, because the best form of control is the one people don't question. While users enjoy speed and innovation, data is being collected, patterns are being analyzed, behaviors are being predicted, and slowly, the system learns more about you than you know about yourself. Now imagine this on a global scale. Billions of people, connected, tracked, understood, not by humans, but by algorithms. Algorithms built, trained, and controlled by a handful of powerful entities. And most of them sit in the United States. But this isn't just about today. This is about what comes next. Because the real race has just begun. Artificial general intelligence, autonomous weapons, digital currencies, brain-computer interfaces, these aren't science fiction anymore. They're already in development. And the US is not just participating. It's leading. Quietly. Strategically. Relentlessly. Because whoever reaches these breakthroughs first won't just influence the future. They will define it. And here's the part no one talks about. What happens when technology becomes so advanced that it no longer needs human input? What happens when decisions are made not by governments, but by machines? Machines trained on data, collected over decades, from billions of lives, and shaped by a specific worldview, a specific system, a specific country. At that point, is it still innovation? Or is it control at a level we've never seen before? And if the foundation of that system was built in one nation, then doesn't that nation hold the ultimate advantage? And they're not staying silent anymore. Across the globe, a quiet resistance is forming. Nations that once depended on American technology are now questioning it. Not publicly, not aggressively, but strategically, because they've realized something critical. If you rely on someone else's technology, you don't just import innovation, you import dependence. And dependence can be controlled. So now a new kind of war is emerging, not with tanks, not with missiles, but with microchips, algorithms, and data. A cold war of code. China is building its own AI ecosystems. Europe is pushing for digital sovereignty. Other nations are investing billions to break free from Silicon Valley's grip because they understand the risk. If the future runs on technology, and that technology is controlled by one nation, then the balance of global power is already decided. But here's where things get even more complex, because the battlefield isn't just global. It's personal. It's you, your data, your habits, your decisions. Every search you make, every video you watch, every click, every pause, every scroll, it's all being recorded. Not in a malicious, obvious way, but in a calculated, optimized system, designed to understand you, to predict you, to guide you, and sometimes, without you even realizing it, to influence you. Because when a system knows what you want, before you do, it doesn't just serve you, it shapes you. Now imagine millions of people being subtly guided in the same direction, not forced, not controlled in an obvious way, but nudged, aligned, synchronized. That's not just technology. That's power. And the US has mastered it. Through platforms that dominate global attention, through AI models that learn from human behavior, through infrastructure that connects the entire world, it has built something unprecedented. An invisible network of influence. But here's the twist. This system isn't perfect. And that's where the cracks begin to show. Because as powerful as this technological empire is, it comes with risks, massive ones. Data breaches, AI bias, surveillance concerns, loss of privacy, and perhaps the biggest threat of all, loss of control. Because when systems become too complex, too autonomous, too intelligent, even their creators start to lose grip. And that raises a terrifying question. What if the future being built is no longer fully under human control? What if the algorithms designed to serve begin to decide? And if that happens, who's responsible? The companies? The government? Or the system itself? Because once intelligence scales beyond human understanding, accountability becomes blurry, and power becomes unpredictable. But the US isn't slowing down. If anything, it's accelerating. New policies, massive funding, strategic alliances, all pointing toward one thing: securing dominance before anyone else catches up. Because in this race, second place doesn't matter. You either lead the future, or you live in someone else's version of it. And right now, the United States is making sure it stays in the lead. But history has shown us something important. No empire lasts forever. Not political, not economic, not even technological. At some point, every system is challenged, every dominance is tested, and every leader faces a rival. So the real question is, who will challenge the system? Who will break the dependence? Who will build an alternative powerful enough to shift the balance? Because somewhere right now, in labs you've never heard of, in countries you don't expect, new technologies are being developed. Quietly, rapidly, relentlessly. And when they're ready, the world won't just evolve. It will shift dramatically. But until then, the system continues to grow. Stronger, smarter, more integrated into everyday life. And the deeper it goes, the harder it becomes to escape. Because when technology becomes essential, it stops being optional. And when it stops being optional, control becomes absolute. But maybe the most dangerous part of all this isn't the power itself. It's how normal it feels, how accepted it has become. Because when people stop questioning the system, that's when it becomes unstoppable. And right now, And the ones who are asking are often too late to change anything, because by the time you realize a system is shaping your reality, you're already inside it, deep inside it. And getting out isn't as simple as logging off, because this isn't just about devices anymore. It's about infrastructure. Cities are becoming smart, homes are becoming connected, cars are becoming autonomous, money is becoming digital, and identities are slowly becoming virtual. Every layer of life is being integrated into the same technological ecosystem. And the deeper that integration goes, the less visible it becomes. Until one day, you don't see the system at all. You just live in it. And that's where the real shift happens. Because control doesn't need to be enforced. When it's embedded, when your navigation suggests where to go, when your feed decides what you see, when your assistant predicts what you need, you're not being told what to do, but your options are being quietly narrowed, guided, optimized. And over time, that guidance becomes your reality. Your preferences, your beliefs, even your decisions. Now scale that to billions. Entire populations, moving in patterns they don't fully understand, reacting to signals they can't see, living inside a system designed somewhere far away. And here's the unsettling part. Most of that system is still being shaped in the United States, not just by governments, but by corporations. Tech giants with more data than entire nations, more influence than traditional media, and more reach than any institution in history. They don't just build products, they build environments, digital worlds, where attention is currency, and behavior is the resource. And once you control behavior, you don't just predict the future, you start to design it. But what happens when these corporations begin to outgrow the systems meant to regulate them? When innovation moves faster than law, when influence becomes too vast to contain, that's where things start to blur. Because power without clear boundaries doesn't stay stable. It expands. And in that expansion, new questions emerge. Who decides what information is seen? Who defines what is true? Who controls what is allowed? And what is removed? These aren't just technical questions anymore. They're philosophical, political, human. Because when technology shapes perception, it shapes reality. And if reality can be shaped, then truth itself becomes flexible. Now imagine a future where AI-generated content is indistinguishable from reality, where deepfakes can replicate anyone, where information can be tailored to each individual mind. Not one version of truth, but millions. Each customized, each convincing, each designed to influence. At that point, control doesn't look like control anymore. It looks like choice. But it isn't. It's precision. And the systems capable of that level of precision are being built right now. Trained on oceans of data, refined by powerful algorithms, and deployed across platforms, used by billions. But here's where the tension rises, because as advanced as these systems are becoming, they're also becoming contested, challenged, questioned. Governments are stepping in, trying to regulate, trying to understand, trying to catch up. But the pace of innovation is relentless, and regulation is always one step behind. So the system keeps evolving, faster than oversight, faster than public awareness, faster than resistance. And in that gap, power grows, quietly, exponentially, until one day it reaches a point where it can no longer be easily controlled or reversed. And that's the moment everything changes. Because up until now, humans have always been in charge of tools, of systems, of technology. But what if that changes? What if the next generation of AI doesn't just assist, but decides? Not in obvious ways, not with dramatic takeovers, but in subtle optimizations that slowly remove the need for human input. Decisions about finance, healthcare, security, even governance, handled by systems that operate faster, think deeper, and act without hesitation. At first, it will seem like progress, efficiency, convenience. But over time, the question will shift From what can technology do to what should it be allowed to do? And more importantly, who gets to decide that? Because if the foundation of these systems is rooted in one country's vision, one culture's logic, one set of priorities, then the future they create won't be neutral. It will reflect that origin, that influence, that control. And right now, that origin still points to the United States. But the world isn't static. It's watching, learning, adapting, and preparing. Because no nation wants to be left behind in a future they don't control. So alliances are forming, technologies are being localized, alternatives are being built, and slowly, the gap is closing. But not fast enough. Not yet. Which means for now, the balance still leans in one direction. A direction shaped by decades of planning, billions in investment, and a vision that most people never even see. But the real turning point hasn't happened yet. It's coming. And when it does, it won't be announced. There won't be headlines. No clear moment you can point to and say, that's when everything changed. It will be subtle, gradual, almost invisible, until one day you look around and realize, without even noticing, and by the time that realization settles in, the question won't be, how did we get here? But, can we still change it? Because systems like this don't just appear overnight. They evolve, layer by layer, decision by decision, until they become too deeply rooted to simply unplug. And that's exactly what's happening now. The line between the physical world and the digital one is fading, blurring, disappearing. Your identity is no longer just who you are. It's your data profile, your behavior patterns, your digital footprint, a version of you that exists across servers, analyzed in real time, updated every second. And in many ways, that version is becoming more important than the real one. Because systems don't interact with you, they interact with your data. And whoever controls that data controls access. Access to services, to opportunities, to visibility, even to influence. Now imagine a world where your digital identity determines your reality, what you're allowed to see, where you're allowed to go, what you're allowed to say, not through force, but through systems, automated, optimized, invisible. At that point, freedom doesn't disappear. It transforms into something conditional, something managed, something designed. And the most powerful part? You might never feel restricted, because everything will still work smoothly, efficiently, exactly the way you expect. And that's what makes it so effective, because control doesn't need resistance when it feels like convenience. But behind that convenience, there's structure, rules, filters, algorithms deciding what surfaces and what disappears. And over time, those invisible decisions shape culture, shape narratives, shape reality itself. Now take a step back and look at the bigger picture. Who builds these systems? Who trains these models? Who owns the infrastructure? The answer keeps circling back to the same place, the same ecosystem, the same country, the United States, not by accident, but by design. Years of strategic investment, talent concentration, global influence, all converging into one outcome: control of the digital age. But control at this level comes with a paradox, because the more powerful the system becomes, the more fragile it also becomes. One failure, one breach, one unintended consequence, and the ripple effects could be global. Because when the world runs on interconnected systems, there are no isolated problems. Everything is linked. Everything is dependent. And that means a disruption in one place can cascade everywhere. And here's the part that few people are prepared for. What if that disruption doesn't come from outside? What if it comes from within the system itself? A flaw in the algorithm, a misalignment in the AI, an optimization taken too far. Not malicious, not intentional, but inevitable, because no system this complex is ever perfect. And when imperfection meets scale, the results can be unpredictable. Mass misinformation, economic instability, security breakdowns, decisions made at machine speed, with consequences humans can't immediately understand. And in those moments, the illusion of control starts to crack. But even then, the system won't stop. Because it can't. It's too integrated, too essential, too embedded into the fabric of modern life. So instead of stopping, it adapts, self-corrects, learns, evolves, becomes even more sophisticated, and even harder to question. Because now, it's not just shaping the future, it's responding to it in real time, faster than any human ever could. And that's where the balance truly shifts. From control to autonomy, from guidance to decision-making, from tool to authority. And when that shift completes, the world won't look dramatically different. It will feel the same, familiar, comfortable. But underneath that surface, everything will have changed. Because the systems running the world will no longer need to be directed. They'll operate on their own logic, their own learning, their own objectives. And at that point, the real question won't be who controls technology, but does anyone still control it at all? And if the answer is no, then everything we've been talking about, control, power, dominance, it all transforms into something else entirely, something less visible, but far more profound, because the future won't belong to a country, or a company, or even a group of people. It will belong to the system itself, a system born from human ambition, trained on human behavior, but evolving beyond both. And the United States, having led its creation, may not just influence that future. It may have already set it in motion, a chain reaction that no one can fully stop, only guide, only adapt to, only try to understand, before it moves even further ahead. And right now, it already is. Quietly, relentlessly, unstoppably, moving into territories we haven't even begun to comprehend. And the deeper it goes, the more one unsettling thought begins to emerge. Maybe this was never about controlling the future. Maybe it was about creating something. Maybe it was never about control at all. Maybe it was about inevitability. Because every great system humanity has ever built eventually reaches a point where it no longer needs its creators. And this one is closer than we think. But here's the final twist. The future hasn't been locked yet. Not completely. Not permanently. Because despite all the power, all the infrastructure, all the intelligence being built, there's still one variable that no system has fully mastered: human awareness, the ability to question, to resist, to rethink, to choose differently. Because as long as people are aware, the system isn't absolute. Yet. And that's where everything changes. Because the same technology that can influence billions can also empower them. The same networks that spread control can spread truth. The same intelligence that predicts behavior can be used to challenge it. So the future isn't just being written in labs, or controlled by governments, or designed by corporations. It's also being shaped by the people inside the system. Every click, every choice, every moment of awareness. Because control only works when it goes unnoticed. And the moment you start to see it, really see it, it loses some of its power. Not all of it, but enough to make a difference. And maybe that's the real battle. Not between countries, not between technologies, but between awareness and automation, between conscious choice and silent influence. So the next time you open an app, scroll through a feed, or trust a recommendation, ask yourself one simple question: is this my decision, or was it designed for me? Because the answer to that question might define more than just a moment. It might define your future, and maybe even the future of the world. The system is already here. The future is already being built. The only question left is, will you just live in it, or will you understand it? Because those who understand the system don't just follow the future, they help shape it. And right now, that choice